Welcome to Immigrate. Welcome to a space where you can be vulnerable, a space where you're not going to be judged, a space where you can be authentic. And my hope and desire is to inspire and motivate everyone that click onto this podcast. So, welcome to another episode of Immigrate. So, welcome to another episode of Immigrate. I'm so excited for this guest I have on today, Nancy. She was migrated from Kenya. I'll let her tell you about her story. Her story is so powerful, and she's a consultant. She's a coach. I mean, guys, trust me, when I drop her information in my description, you're definitely gonna want to go check her out. She's doing a lot of things in the community, and I'm so happy to talk to you. Welcome, Nancy.
Thank you, Tasha. Thank you.
So, Nancy, tell me about yourself.
Right. Tell me about yourself. That is always an interesting question. It reminds me like when you go to an interview and they say, tell me about yourself. Right. So, as you mentioned, I'm Nancy Nongari and I'm born and raised in Kenya, East Africa. I live in Germany where I've been living for over 25 years with a few interruptions. And yeah, that's who I am as a person. Professionally, I'm a consultant. I consult on digital marketing, and I'm also a published author and a certified coach. So that's what I do professionally.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So, you moved to Kenya too. So, where did you move to?
I migrated to Germany. I had been to another country before. I had been to England when I first got my passport. You know, in my home country, we get our passports from 18, 19. You're allowed to get your passport and travel. So I believe I was, before I turned 20, I went to visit friends in England. So I had been to London before. And then, it was was it a 6 month? I think 6 months. Yeah. Back then we used to have like you could have like without a visa because of the Commonwealth. So you could stay in a country, in a Commonwealth country in England for 6 months. I think I stayed for 3 months. I had some good friends there. And then I went back to Kenya, but to Germany, I migrated because of a partnership. I had a partner who we moved here to Germany with.
Oh, why? My family is from Germany, so that's very
Interesting.
nice. It
Okay.
is. I know, small world, eh?
Indeed. Do you speak German? Or does he speak
I
German?
don't. My no. He
Oh,
listen.
okay.
I don't even think his mom does he. No,
Oh,
I don't
okay.
think.
So you mean like
He
his
born in
descendants?
Canada.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah,
get
he
you.
born
I
in. So
get you.
his yeah, he born in yeah.
Okay.
So why do you think okay? So you said you moved to Germany because of love.
Mm-hmm,
Woohoo!
mm-hmm.
So why do you think that was the reason? Is it because of not just love, but what else do you think that you moved there for?
Like I said, my partner had been working in Kenya. He was an expatriate for 4 years, and
Okay.
we were living together. And then when his contract ended, then we moved to Germany, or rather, he came first and got things, and then I joined him. I had visited before we actually permanently moved here, and I got a really huge shock. But that's part of the conversation. I'll share with that later as we move along. So.
Exactly. And that's what I'm going to ask you. No, tell me your experience while living there. Exactly. So you go right into that.
Oh, wow. Okay, before even living here, I mean, he used to tell me like when we were in Kenya, I don't know, they had like football made in Germany, or he would travel, back to Germany for whatever to check up with his employer. And, when we would talk about, okay, what about when the contract ends and moving, he would say, it's not easy in Germany. People are the culture. He didn't say it outright, that it's not very, like immigrant friendly. But I thought, yeah, you're just saying that because, you're
You
just
want
trying
me
to
to come
discourage
there?
me. But he would
Uh,
drop hints like that. And then what happened was, before we even moved here, we went to visit his parents. And wow, that was a shock. When we went, when we arrived, they lived in a village, in a little village, and so traveling. And when we arrived, it was late at night, so they were sleeping, or nobody was there to receive us. We arrived late in the night, I think after 11 or something, flights or whatever. I can't remember the backstory. But in the morning when we woke up, the shock of my life, his dad had left the house because he didn't want to cross paths with me. It was like his parents' birth house, because he didn't have a house here. We were living in Kenya. But then, he was coming to see his parents, and his dad had woken up and left early in the morning so that we don't cross paths. And his mother, she was hostile and she was upset with him. And she was like, how could you bring a black woman to the village? And this is a shame for me. And everybody's talking. They live in a really small village. And I was, when I look back now, that was traumatizing, but I didn't know at that point that that's trauma. But I was in shock, because I'm like, what is wrong with my black skin? I didn't expect that kind of a reaction from his parents. And he was embarrassed about it, and he tried to kind of, they've never seen a black woman. I said, yeah, but you've been living like in a black country for like 4 years. I think it was 3 years and something. And they would call sometimes, and they said hello, on the phone. So I was very shocked. But I think he was also I think he was ashamed about it, and tried to defend me. And his mother was against it. His parents were against our relationship, or even worse, our marriage. So that was very shocking. That was my first encounter with like direct racism, like not covert. It was very overt, it was very obvious. And looking back now, I think that kind of had an imprinting on me. And on a subconscious level, that years later it would take me to kind of process that. So yeah, that was some of the very unpleasant experience that I had. And so when we moved, when we got married, and it would be Christmas or Easter or something, and he's like, okay, are we going to Madre? He would call his mother Madre. I'd say, I am not going to that place. And after a
Right.
while, I was like, okay, respect. We come from a culture in Africa, you respect the elders. And and he's like, come on, they're sorry, and they had not met you, and we were not married then, so you were just a girlfriend. And they were upset. I was like, yeah, but we've been girlfriends for more than for 3 years. It's not like I'm not a stranger. And we would go, but I always felt very uncomfortable. They tried to be, like, yeah, to kind of accommodate me. But when you know what someone thinks of you from the first impression, it's kind of hard to
It stucks
overlook
in your
that.
head.
Yeah, it's hard to overlook
It
that. So I
does.
really only went when I really had to. And sometimes it was a reason for us to argue, because I'm like, those people, they don't like me. And I'm just and yeah, but they're my family, and you're my wife. And it was challenging. It was challenging.
Ah, you said when before pre-recording, and if it's okay for me to share this, when you said we sound like we have similar stories,
Hmm.
because you're speaking to me right now.
Hmm.
You're speaking to my soul, because I didn't get the same. My husband family was not because in Canada it's no modern, right? But they seen more black people, but I think their reaction of me was not. It was a kind of the same,
Mm,
because I'm more outspoken, and they're like, who is this person? They're very quiet, right? They're
mm,
introvert.
mm,
And for me, I'm a very talkative person,
mm.
hence why I started a podcast.
You have something to
so,
say.
so
Yes,
yeah,
speak,
so I've
girl,
always,
speak. Yeah.
yeah, I've always have something to say. And my mom, I used to backtalk, so they were a little bit drawn back. They said lots of mean things, like stuff they would say. And then I was like, I don't want to go to their house, because I don't think like
Mm,
these people. And my husband was like, no, they like you, but they're not so really used to someone who was so outspoken. And I'm like, well, this is who I am. And then, you get into that defensive mood,
mm,
right?
mm.
So it's interesting how, mixing cultures and having that interracial differences can make our experience
I mean,
living
there
in
are
a country.
interracial relationships even before our time, back then when there was a lot of segregation, or even like in America. And there are couples who, they kind of stuck to each other. But sadly, sometimes relatives or in laws I mean, even on the, on the black person side, they can be a reason for, marriages not surviving. And you mentioned something about talking a lot. It's you speak English, and in Canada is English. But when I came here that day, I didn't speak any German. I just maybe one or two words which I'd learned from, my ex-husband. But back then, when we were visiting his parents, I did not speak or understand a single word of German. So communication also, I have no idea what they said. I wonder, what they said. And he was just telling me what they said. Maybe he spared me by trying to be gentle. But
Right. Ooh,
the language also, and as you said,
was a big barrier.
the culture differences. I mean, I can understand if like they're living in a village, or but blacks are everywhere today. I guess it's different when you're seeing blacks from a distance, and when a black person is actually part of your family, where you're thinking,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this person has a completely different background. And we human beings, we tend to be a bit skeptical about what we don't know. If a white man
That's
goes to my
right.
village, the kids will be looking at him first of all, like if they've never seen a white person.
And touching his
But
skin. Hmm.
but they don't react with animosity. They don't react with like hatred, if I may say that, or dislike. It's more curiosity. And so I sometimes I don't understand that people have an issue with dark skinned people or with black people, but well, it's not my place to figure them out. I think we have to figure our way around it, and not let that stop us, and not let that
I mean, we're all beautiful, man. God created us all, and I don't see that differently. Kudos to them if they want to see that. I know I'm beautiful. Everybody around me, once you're in my presence and in my space, you're gonna feel beautiful, and you're gonna be beautiful. So we rebuke those
Mm-hmm.
animosity and anything that people want to come with these days. And it's they have to work out that with God, because I know my God is not biased.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean. So
Yeah.
with all that, what is the most complex do you think that you overcome in this journey that you what was the most complex thing moving to Germany?
The most complex thing. Wow. It's not one thing. I think it's just the whole, I think it's the whole event of, besides the culture shock. I think the most complex thing, I would say it's the whole cross culture perspective and having to develop like a new identity, because I'm an African. I'm born and raised in Kenya, but I'm living now in this country. So one of the first things that we did was I went to the language school to learn the language, because I realized that, I would ask, the bus driver or whoever, I learned questions in English. Do you speak English? And they all said no, no. In the supermarket, no, no. So I'm like, how am I going to survive if I cannot communicate? Communication is so important. And so one of the first things was, learning the language so I can be able to maneuver my way around, or at least, be able to go to a supermarket or and we didn't have mobile phones back then and stuff that you can call your partner and say, hey, I'm here, and send me a WhatsApp. That wasn't there. When he went for work and I decided to go out, I had to figure my way around. And so, to answer your question, I would think it's the mindset of being willing to see the vision of where you are or what you see for yourself, being able to see it and being able to press through it despite the hurdles, and developing. By doing so, you develop a new identity, literally, because I'm like I said, I'm Kenyan, but I live in Germany. And our surroundings affect us, the things we go through affect us. So we adapt to the culture and to a lot of, wherever you are,
Right.
you kind of have to adapt not to be a chameleon, because a chameleon will, in green, it's going to turn green, but it still remains a chameleon. So I still remain a black African Kenyan woman living in Germany, but
Right.
my mindset, I have had to embrace that cross culture and pick up some of the good things. I mean, there's some good things in the German culture that I've picked up, their work
Yeah.
ethic and how they do things. But at the same time, not losing my identity of my roots and who I am, and being proud of it, and sticking to it. I'll give you a small it might seem insignificant example, but like wearing braids, we black women, we wear our hair differently. And if you wear it straight, you kind of tend to look more, I don't know, they call it neat or whatever. And our afros or our braids they
Yeah,
can
it
look
looks
in a
messy.
professional setting, it can look like it's not professional, but that's part of
That's
who I
right.
am. And I
That's
embrace
right.
that and I stick with it. And I'm not about to let someone, whitewash my identity so that I can fit in. I'm not trying to fit in. I'm trying to, not trying, but I'm committed to establishing myself with the whole cross culture as this new personality, not new, but these additional influences of having traveled and having settled here, but still remembering who I am and where I come from. And it's in my roots, our bringing is with us, we just pick up other things along the way and integrate it to our advantage, So
It's true.
that's a long, long-winded answer. I don't even think I answered it.
No, no, no. You have, and it's true because um, it doesn't matter where we go, our
Mm,
identity changes.
mm,
It doesn't. It changes because we're trying to adapt. We
mm,
have to rebirth.
mm,
My identity changed when I came here.
mm-hmm,
Where I grew up in Jamaica, people see me as a little girl, probably the shy one,
mm,
the one that some people think I was very illiterate.
mm,
You know, some people see me at college when I moved to college as, oh, she's so smart, she do this, da, da, da. But when I moved to Canada, some people are like, oh my God, she's lonely, she have a family. So it changes our identity. It doesn't matter where we go and what we do. So it is you have answered the question, Bill, and it's true. And for me, I mean, every guest I have on this podcast taught me something. And now when you're talking, I'm thinking about it, I'm like, she's so right. My identity was changed,
mm.
and it's something that was complex for me because I thought I should be the same person I was in Jamaica. But
No, we
that
cannot be.
personality, we cannot.
We cannot be. Because I don't know about you if you've gone back home since you migrate. Have you ever gone back home or do you go back home
I
often?
haven't gone back home. No, I
Okay,
haven't.
you might want to be prepared for that because what happens is when I would go home every year, and with time it took me a while to realize indeed I have changed, because when you go back you're not the same Tasha who left. And without realizing, we adapt to our surroundings, mirror neurons, the people we're around, people say whoever you're around, we adapt subconsciously, it's just a survival mechanism, as the Bible says, if you the companion of fools, shall be destroyed. If you walk with the wise, you'll be wise, just to bring the faith aspect of it, like we talked earlier. So
Right.
our company, the people we keep company with, and even very subconsciously, the mannerisms, the culture, we pick that up. So when I would go back to my home country, sometimes they'd be side eyeing you like, oh, you do that now since you're from Germany, or is that German? And I didn't even realize that what I was doing was for them unfamiliar, because I had picked up that mannerism here, and it's part of me, it's part of who I am now. I'm not doing that there like to show them I'm different. I've just adapted on a very subconscious level. So you'll realize that when you go back home or when you go back to, the country you came back from, you realize also, I'll give another example, punctuality or keeping your word, like you say, I'll be there at 5, then somebody's there at 5 or they're there the next day, small things, and then I'll be upset and they're looking at you like, what are you making a big deal out of, But that's because where you live, that's the normal, if you say something, you keep your word and it's expected. So, but then also to answer your question of the biggest challenge, that change is very we use it very flippantly. Change is never easy. It's very challenging. It's like a caterpillar when it's becoming a butterfly. There's a lot of struggle going on in that cocoon, before it breaks out, and it's very dark in there when the caterpillar is, having the transformation. And for me, the
Nancy, I
early
really
years
like
when
you.
I was here, it was the change was very difficult. I had a hard time adapting because I didn't have any friends. Like we were talking before we started, I didn't have any friends. In Africa, we had friends. We would go out, we would do barbecues, we would take safaris, holidays. And here, he would go to work and I would go to school and then come home, and I didn't even know my neighbor. you know, we were living in, you don't know your neighbors. Sometimes you'll go weeks before seeing anybody. And so
Right.
the few friends that I had to make were in the language school, and then his parents, because he had also been living abroad for so long, his
Yeah.
relationships with the friends had also changed, so it was very isolating. And that's part of the part that people don't, maybe they don't think about. We didn't have like meetups or like Facebook, and so you're literally on your own. It's just you and your partner, and it was a very difficult time. I had a very hard time. I got into substance abuse, because after college I would buy a bottle of wine and then we'd sit there and watch TV, and I don't understand the TV. We didn't have all the English channels. It was just German. And I'm like, let's go
Oh,
out. It's like, no,
wow.
we can't go out because I can't drink. If I drink, I'm going to lose my
Yeah.
license. I'm like, what?
Right.
In Kenya, we would go out and, we would have a drink and big deal.
Right.
So I wasn't saved at that point. We were both atheists, both disillusioned atheists. So it was
Right.
very difficult. I drank a lot and I got into all kinds of substance abuse, started running around with the wrong people, and that change, when I talk about it changes you, it's
Yeah.
been a long way coming. It's been
Thank you for that.
yeah.
Thank you for being so vulnerable. Thank you. I mean, we could talk for hours, and it's true because these things does impact us. So, how would you think if you could turn back your time of you being your young self? What would you tell your young self right now?
I'm so proud of you. So proud
Say
of
that
you.
again, girls. Say it like you mean it.
I am so proud of you. I'm so proud of you.
Mm,
Yes, you're still standing. You've been a brave young person. Yeah. And I would also say I'm sorry for the times I didn't, treat you the way I should have treated. I'm sorry for the times I mismanaged you, or the times I abandoned you, or the times I put you in dangerous situations. I would definitely say that. And it's not even I would. It's actually something that I am doing because, I've been doing a lot of, do they say, your earlier years, because our earlier years also affect our later years, whether we realize it or
does.
not. And I don't want to be sitting in
Yeah.
some nursing home rocking back and forth and talking about, when I was 18, this happened to me, So I've been processing a lot of that stuff that we, especially as Blacks, we don't talk about, whether it's a trauma and the things we've gone through. So I've been processing a lot of that stuff. And part of it is actually telling my younger self and recognizing the times when I mismanaged her, when I put her in dangerous situations, and also, just forgiving my younger self because I didn't know better. I did what I did with the
Right.
information I had, with the resources I had.
Yeah.
So also not being tough on myself, but also being proud of her for, for being proud of
Thank
her.
you for
Yeah.
that. Thank you for that. Thank
Hmm.
you so much for that because not a lot of people would tell themselves that. I'm proud of you.
Hmm.
What encouragement would you leave with an immigrant who is listening? What would you tell them right now?
Hmm. Wow. Always worry about giving. The grass can look greener on the other side, you know, but sometimes it's because it's been watered. And so, it's the world has become, it's become a village, right? There's a lot of migration going back and forth. And sometimes we move to another place and think everything is going to change and my whole life is going to be better. And then we have a rude awakening a few years down the line, hindsight is always 2020. So the grass, wherever you are, be happy with yourself there and don't expect that going to another place, or if you've just migrated to another place, that is where you're finally going to be happy. Because here's another thing, Tasha, I actually almost migrated to Canada. I was in Toronto and I wanted to go to Montreal, and it was at a time where my life was really, really just, it was falling apart. My marriage was falling apart, and I thought, you know what, migrating is going to, moving to another country is going to solve all my problems. So I thought, yeah, we'll go to Canada. So I took leave from work and I got a visa and I went to Toronto. I was going to like
Oh,
scoop
nice.
the area and then come back
Yeah.
and divorce my husband and then I'll move to Canada and I'll be happy there. But wow, God had another plan for me. I had a divine encounter with God in Toronto. First of all, I lost all my money at the airport. That was the beginning. And then I missed my flight, and but it's that's another whole long story. I ended up getting baptized in Toronto, baptized as a grown person. I had been baptized as a child, and I had an encounter with God. And by the time my was it 2 or 3 weeks? By the time that was over, I knew that God wanted me in Germany, and I was just I was being like Jonah, like going to Nineveh, and I knew that I could have migrated. I made some friends. I asked them, well, how does it work? I could have come back and moved, but I had such a life-changing encounter with God, and by the time I came back to Germany, I knew that I'm here for a reason. I'm in this particular country for a reason, and until
That's
He
right.
says, um,
Time for you to move.
yeah, Abraham, take your things and go to a place where you do not know. I'm just gonna
Yes.
keep trusting him day by day and watch his plan unfold. So I would say to an immigrant, the grass is not always green on the other side. You can make the grass green where you are. If you freshly migrated, then water the grass there and don't put too many expectations on the new place. If you're thinking about migrating, think it through and remember wherever you go, you always take yourself with you. So it's important to build yourself up and have a vision for yourself, irrespective of where you are. And most important, to trust your creator. There's a verse that says he ordained us to be born at a certain time and the countries we'll be living in. It's somewhere in Acts, but every time I read it, I'm like, I'm not here by chance. I didn't meet that you know, atheist man who became my husband by chance. And another thing, I turned back to God in this country, in Germany. I grew up in a Christian home. My mom was born again. But when I was about 16, I rebelled and turned around and said, there's no God because of all the pain I saw and all the trauma I was going through. And I said, there cannot be any God. And I became an atheist. So all along, with my ex-partner. And then when I came back here, this is where God, met me, and my prodigal son moment actually happened in this country. So
Hallelujah.
trust God that He's ordering our steps, even when we don't ask Him. There's a grand plan out there.
It's funny because I was going to ask you about the same question. How was your spiritual journey impact? But you already just responded. And it is so beautiful how God can lead us. And my previous interviewer I did, her name was Rochelle Thomas, and she was telling me how when you move into another country, how your life can change in terms of your spiritual life. And sometimes
Mm,
it can either get worse or it can
mhm,
get better.
mhm,
I know, and she was saying hers got better, it got stronger. You build more faith in
mm,
God
mm,
and having a stronger relationship with God,
mm,
because it doesn't matter where we think we're going, God has a purpose for us.
mm.
And I love how beautiful you said you wanted to run away, like
Jonah.
yeah, in the Bible, Jonah.
Mm,
Thanks. And but God said, "No, I need you in Germany. I
yeah,
That's where I want you."
yeah.
And sometimes wherever God wants us, He plant us there, and He
Mm,
flourish us there. And flourishing looks different for many people.
yeah.
Flourishing can look like a whole season of no rain, right?
Mm,
Or
mm.
flourishing can look like, oh, we're getting. It depends, but wherever God put us. And as we're wrapping up right now, what is 3 words would you leave with someone that's listening? That, you know what, from Nancy, this is what I want to tell people. 3 words.
Hmm. 3 words. You are God's beloved. I think those are more than three. You are loved. You are loved. You're loved. Whatever love can look like, you're loved. God loves you. Jesus loves you. That's more than 3 words, but in a nutshell, you are loved.
Thank you so much, Nancy, for being so authentic and vulnerable. it's never always easy to come on a podcast and meeting Tasha. Yes, we met for the first time, everyone. And she sounds like I know her for years. She's gonna be my new aunt. Is that okay? Is that okay, Nancy? And we're gonna keep connected and we're gonna keep interacting with each other online because this
Sure.
is what
Mm.
online does. It brings people together. And I just want to thank you for coming on and being one of my guests today.
Thank
It was
you.
a delight to have you.
Thank you,
Your
Tasha.
words of wisdom just touch my heart and inspire me, who constantly, every time I interview someone, I am internally blessed and encouraged. So I cannot imagine what you will do for my guests or my listeners that's listening. And you know what? It's okay. We doesn't matter what we go through. Racism. What I mean is like, I mean, okay, you can do what you want to do and
Mm,
that's fine,
mm,
but this is what we want to do. We want to serve God. We want to love people. We want to pour into people. We
mm.
want to do the things that God has called us to do, you know?
You said it. We
And
want to love people. I mean, Jesus said, pray for those who spitefully use you and pray for your enemies. And, loving people, like you just said, we want to love people, even the unlovable. But that loving people doesn't mean we put ourselves in dangerous situations or harmful situations and, be naive as Christians. We use wisdom. You can love people from afar, and I think, I get what you mean, when people are racist, it's very easy to take it personally, because it's a personal attack, actually, when somebody is being racist against you, it's easy to take it personally, but we have to rise above that. And by rising above that, I don't mean, the cliche of be the bigger person and walk away. Sometimes it can mean confronting the person and say, I don't think, I don't feel what you're doing. And that's not okay. That's not a good way to treat someone, or pray for them from a distance. And because sometimes even today, when I encounter people who are either covertly being racist, trying to humble you or trying to put you in your place, because you're a black person, I look at them, and when I'm looking at them, I'm thinking, okay, what is the spirit behind this person? Why they are? Do they have maybe their relatives or their parents? Were they, national socialists? You have there's a lot of things you have to consider when you're looking at someone. And most people, Tasha, when they are being aggressive or hateful or mean, they actually have things going on with themselves. It's not even about us. Sometimes they're just projecting their insecurities, their fears. Like here, sometimes Germans, there was a thing where they say, foreigners out because they think, oh, you're coming and you're taking all our jobs. So it really, I think sometimes it's wise for us to look at the person and kind of see beyond that human being standing before you, which is hard. It's easier said than done, because we're human, and we hurt, and nobody wants to be treated badly because of their skin color or because of their race or something. But I think mentally rising above the person mentally, but putting a distance between us and them, because when we dislike someone or when we say, to hell with them, that also affects us on the inside. It's hard to pray for someone that you're angry with, to bless them from afar. So, oh my, I said another mouthful there.
no, it's true. It's for me, it's to hell is like, you know what? And I think it's a terminology too. It's the fact that you said something profound there where we sometimes we have to try and pray for the spirit of to see beyond. As a
Mm,
Christian,
mm,
we too have to understand that we are all humans, and we when we see people and people say hurtful things to us,
mm,
it does impact us
hmm.
because a
Yeah,
lot of people have said hurtful things to me.
yeah.
And then it's a thing that God and I
Mm,
has been talking about and working out too, right?
mm,
And
mm,
it's true. We just have to ask God to deal with these things that
mm.
internally too, because sometimes I don't know if you listen to Sarah Jakes Roberts.
Not really, but I really, really like her dad. I don't listen to her.
So she said something in an interview. She said whenever she read her comment section
Mm,
ever since,
mm,
she said the things that always hurt her is the things that internally that she still struggles with.
mm. mm,
She said those are the things when people comment about it in the comment section. And
mm,
that stood out to me so much because when people say hurtful things to me, it's
mm,
always the things that I still struggle with. And God and I are like, God, this is what we need to do, you
mm,
know?
mm, mm,
And it's something sometimes where I'm like, God, we need to work this out because I'm still struggling with that.
mm.
And it hurts, right? It
Yeah,
hurts. And
yeah.
sometimes people say things so deeply. And as an immigrant,
Mm,
that could be something that we struggle with so much because we're living in our country and we come here
mm.
and we don't know better
People,
sometimes and we do
yeah,
things without not knowing. But this is why I call my podcast Immigrate,
I love it.
because we're immigrating, and
Yes.
while immigrated we're learning, we're changing the narratives,
Yeah,
we're changing our story,
yeah.
we're changing all the things that people say about us and do about us, right?
Mm.
So it's all compact. And Nancy, again, thank you so much for just
Joy.
being so authentic. I really like you so much. I
Thank
want
you
to
for
talk to you for
having
an
me.
hour.
Thank you for having me, Tasha. It was a
But
joy.
yes, I it was a pleasure having you, and just I know I'm gonna have you back here for sure. The spirit is telling me that.
Thank you,
And I
Tasha.
just want to say thank you for everything.
Right. You too. Thank you so much for having me. It was a joy to have this conversation. It does feel like, like I know you already. So yeah, let's stay in touch.
All right, thanks. Um this was another great episode with Nancy. And as I rightly said in my interview, she's going to be my new aunt. When I do these really interviews with these passionate, powerful women in the world, I always they always have some impact on me. And this episode is none different. And I just want to thank you again to listen to another episode of Immigrate. Let's continue immigrating our mind, soul, and body. Immigrate.